When you're designing for people in their homes, if they don't have a style, I always say to them, try and work out what you don't like. Because if you can knock out everything that you don't like, then that style will eventually emerge.
What drew you more strongly towards styling over traditional interior design work?
I just really, really love the adrenaline-filled days of shooting and styling for shooting compared to the long process of working with clients. And then all of a sudden, it's like, we call it the post-shoot hangover. The next day, it's just like, oh, where's everyone gone? I thought I was really busy, and then all of a sudden it completely drops off from that adrenaline dropping. You really need to stand in a space. You need to know spatially the tones, where the light falls. So a recce is always important, at least 2 weeks ahead. It's just getting to know that person that you're going to style for. You know, tell me how you want to feel. And it's also pulling the person, the viewer, into that image.
Welcome to Behind the Design, a podcast where we unfold the details behind the designs we know and love and explore how each project comes to life. I am Camilla Ingall, owner of Unfolded, an interior design and styling studio. In this podcast series, we dive into the details with our industry experts, covering topics such as the creative process, latest design trends, and how we, as an industry, work together to meet the brief and overcome challenges. Let the conversation begin. Welcome back to Behind the Design, the podcast where we explore the people and the processes behind the spaces we see finished, styled, and photographed, but rarely fully understood. I'm your host, Camilla Ingall, interior designer and founder of Unfolded. Today, I'm joined by Bea Lambos, founder of Bea & Co Style, a stylist known for working with architects, interior designers, and publications to bring projects to life through thoughtful, layered styling. Styling is often the final creative step before a project is shared with the world, but it's also one of the least understood parts of the design process. Bea's work sits right at that intersection between design, storytelling, and photography. What I find fascinating about styling is how invisible the process can be. People see the final image and assume the space simply look like that naturally, but styling is incredibly strategic. It's about understanding the architecture, the design intent, the photographer's perspective, and even the way light moves through a space. Bea has built a career doing exactly that, working closely with designers and photographers to create images that feel authentic, but also visually compelling. Bea, welcome to Behind the Design.
Thank you. Thank you for finally having me.
So Bea, you've worked across both interior design and styling, and you've spoken about how styling has become your true focus. What drew you more strongly towards styling over traditional interior design work?
I just really, really love the adrenaline-filled days of shooting and styling for shooting, yeah, compared to the long process of working with clients. Yeah.
And with styling as well, it's quite fast-paced
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah.
It's quick.
Yes, it is. And it's sort of it's so all-encompassing that you probably you can't think about too many at once. So I quite often try and stage ones, especially if I know they're going to be a lot of work. And it's just, very adrenaline-filled, lots of stamina needed. And then all of a sudden, it's like, we call it the post-shoot hangover. The next day, it's just like, oh, where's everyone gone? I thought I was really busy, and then all of a sudden, it completely drops off from that adrenaline dropping.
Yeah, I get that after the recording days here.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah.
I can imagine all the talking.
You've mentioned that one of the challenges with interior design can sometimes be persuading clients to invest in things like artwork and furniture. Did that experience influence your decision to focus more on styling projects?
Maybe, and I think maybe I probably needed to brush up on my saleswoman skills, because I don't really have a particular style in essence. So I feel like I'm jumping across and going, well, so in styling, say you need a bench, and it might be you may be only able to find 3. So you use what's best because you don't necessarily have the things that you really, really, really want. Some things are just
The ideal isn't there.
use. Yeah. And so I feel like whenever I'm working with clients, especially with art, I always say to them, there's going to be more than one perfect thing for this space. And I think that's harmed me working with clients because I give them too many options maybe. So yeah, I think that's why the styling suits me better, because I feel like I can, just jump to the next thing, forget about the thing that I've had in my head for maybe a week or 2 weeks or a month or whatever. And then I have to start, loving on something else and trying to, I suppose I do sell it, but styling is, the best of what you've got, I think.
Absolutely. It's sort of the best of what's available. And if we circle back to how you said it's quite fast, it's because there's a deadline. With interior design projects, they can be 18 months long.
Completely. And you can sit on things for a while and
Custom art made in that
yeah,
time.
yeah, you can have samples and you can play with things and really, really because I suppose it's that investment. Whereas with styling, the investment is obviously the team putting it together and the time, but it's really, you've got to make the best of what you've got. And when you going into showrooms, you don't necessarily have, you can't have everything as well. So
We
you
can
have to-
dream.
you can dream. Yeah. And so you have to try to, make the best of what you can get. And showrooms now sell from the floor, which
They
they
do.
never did before COVID, I don't think.
Floor stock, yes.
So floor stock, I can fall in love with one piece and then the day before just checking in to confirm, a pickup the next day and they say, oh no, we've actually sold it. So that happens all the time. So I think that's why I don't get invested too hard. And I'm also a little bit secretive maybe with the client in not telling them exactly what I'm going to bring, because
It's
a lot
not
of the time it
secretive,
doesn't turn
though,
up.
because you're actually protecting yourself in a way and protecting them, because otherwise everyone gets their hopes up.
Absolutely.
And to clarify, would you say that this approach and this experience is more dictated in your styling for shoots or styling when, for example, the interior designer finishes the home, the client moves in? Is this you buying the furniture? Yes, more than just for a photo shoot.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So you do
And
both services.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And sometimes to post a photo shoot, the client will then come and will contact and say, look, the homeowner wants some help. Would you be able to help her with some rugs? Or they loved what you bought. Could we please try, could you, can you work with them to, service that? Yeah, which is good. Which is great. So it's sort of, you've already been in the home, you know exactly what they've got in their house, you know what will work because you've already bought something in that you've tried in spatially. So yeah, sometimes it works, serendipitous. It's good.
It's a clearer brief too, isn't it? Yeah. And so you tend to take on only one or two clients at any one time because of how intensive these shoots can be. So what does a typical styling project actually involve from start to finish for you?
Well, it probably depends on the project and depends on the client. If it's a consecutive client, so someone you've worked with before, a lot of the time it's you do you. Get back to us a couple of days before, tell us what we need to do. It always involves a recce. I used to sometimes turn up at a shoot blind, which is like a blind date. It's crazy. I know.
Had you been sent photos or layout or
Sometimes.
good on
But
you?
I've
It's
learned,
brave.
yeah. Well, the one we did in Sydney 2 weeks ago was exactly like that. It was Zoom calls. And so you really need to stand in a space. You need to know spatially the tones, where the light falls, all that sort of stuff. So a recce is always important, at least 2 weeks ahead. And then it gives me time to process in my head what I think the gaps are. And if also the other good thing is if you've worked with the photographer that you're going to work with on shoot day, you know what angles they love, you know you just know how it's all going to work, sort of. Yeah, so that, you need all that time to process it as well.
And it is interesting because, you say 2 weeks, and I'm just thinking for the listener, they're probably thinking, sorry, how big is this job for 2 weeks? So how big are we talking? What would be an average size project that you would work on?
Like, for example, yesterday, it was literally a front door shot, one edge of a bed, so that just in case they got them published, everyone likes to see a bedroom. It's sort of weird to publish a house without a bedroom. And then it was literally a kitchen, dining connected, quite small terrace, and then a couple of bathrooms and a tiny little mezzanine level, which we sort of put some furniture upstairs that hadn't been finished. So the designer thought it was a half day. And eventually, I think once everyone gets into a groove and then you suddenly get some really great shots, and I think you go above their expectations, it becomes a lot bigger. So, yeah.
And, this has just reminded me of why I do this podcast, because this is behind the design. You've just said that potentially this house could be published in a publication where the mezzanine level isn't even finished and you're styling it for this photography. No one would know that.
No,
when they
that's
watch.
the smoke and mirrors
Isn't it?
of it. And I think too, sometimes designers and architects have worked with the client for maybe 2 years on a project. So
Tell
they
me
get
about
to
it.
the end, usually the budget, the furniture and art is probably, for most people, that's where they cut the budget. And so
Well, they're like, what's left?
yeah, absolutely. So I did one a couple of weeks ago, and the architect just said, look, low expectations. We hadn't done a recce as well. It was out of town. So they were like, let's just jump in there. Let's just serendipitously put it together. The client had sent some photos, some really, just iPhone shots. So I knew she had a good art collection and I could see bits and pieces, against walls and that sort of stuff. And so, yeah, we just jumped in there and it was
Makeshift.
incredible day. Yeah, incredible. And they sort of said, look, we probably won't even get it published because we don't think, we're just not sure they hadn't seen it since it was in construction.
Oh, wow.
So they'd got all these photos as well. And so we walked in and went, oh my God, this is amazing. We really need to, this is going to be really good. And the garden was amazing. The weather was good. All those things just all sort of worked in so well. So that's when
Came together. Isn't that funny? Because I went to this conference recently, and I say conference, it was more of a speaker's day called the Growth Faculty at the ICCC. And there was Ash Barty's tennis coach. He wrote a book, and I've been listening to it on Audible.
Okay, yeah.
And it's very strongly around expectation. There's a lot of reminder in this one chapter around expectation. And that is a perfect example of that architect going, okay, look, I've missed a bit of a gap here. This job's now finished. It has potential to be published. I'm going to get Bea in, she knows what she's doing, and let's just give it a red hot go. And then, like he said, oh, actually some cool art. Oh, it's sunny. Oh, actually that angle's really beautiful. What you can achieve without having this like really, really specific brief where you're almost micromanaging everybody.
Completely. And I think that is the creative process. It really is, because everyone's collaborating. The photographer's like, okay, what do you reckon? And I found a rug under a bed, which was incredible, that the client sort of said, what are you going to do with that? And I said, I don't know, but it looks amazing in frame. So let's start with that. We didn't end up even needing a sofa in the frame because this rug was just incredible and really, really
Made
told the
the
story about
space.
this layered house. So that, I think when the brief is loose like that, the creativity can then really go rampant, fueled with coffee and chocolate at 3 o'clock.
Bit of
But yeah,
adrenaline, like you say.
yeah, the adrenaline. But that is that creative process that you get to the end of the day and you're like, wow, the architect's happy, everyone's happy, the client's happy. They've suddenly had this art that's been sitting around, the architraves all of a sudden put up. She was putting art up as we went because I was sort of like, oh, I'd love that on that blue wall. She was just putting art up. It was amazing. So there are those days. They're the days that I go, I wish everyone was like that. So,
Because you
yeah.
can just have your creative flow.
Yeah.
And there's no
completely.
pressure.
Yeah. And you can sort of sleep well at night, I think, because you sort of get to the end of the day and you know that you've done a good job that day and you know that what you found through the lens, because it's all through the lens, like, a room may look really amazing through the lens, but, it's all in weird angles and sort of stuff when you look at it through the eye. But when you see it through the lens, you're like, yeah, this was really good,
Proud moment.
Yeah.
I love that. Let's dive into the reality behind the interior photography. How much work actually goes into preparing a home for photography? From your perspective, what do people misunderstand most about the styling process?
Um, well, it depends. I mean, there are different stylists, right? But for me, I style to frame. So when I go to a recce, I just take my iPhone photos. I never share them with the photographers. I ask them, "Do you want some shots before, shoot day?" And they always will say, "No, let's you've got it in your head. I want to just walk in and find what I find." When you style to frame, I don't say if I came into this room, I would not touch anything unless I knew that it wasn't going to suit the style of what photos we were taking. But if I would just never touch anything. Sort of just say, let's just wait until we set the frame up because it might depend on what the weather's like that day, or it's very specific. So it just means that you're not touching as much as what is in people. A lot of people actually style their house for us to come in and shoot it because I think they're house proud and they really want you to love what they've got in their house and stuff. So you don't want to take too much. You do not
They're
want to
thinking
take.
it's
You don't want,
ready.
yeah,
I've
yeah,
prepared it
yeah,
for the
yeah.
stylist.
And it's like a real estate shot. It looks completely different. You see a real estate shot online and you're like, wow, this space is huge. And then you walk in and realize, oh yeah, they've tricked us with the photography. So
Absolutely. The
maybe
wide angle.
magazines are like that too.
Yeah.
But we're also working with mood. We're also working with style. We're also trying to hooray whoever has designed it, whether it's a builder, an architect, or, interior designer. So, yeah, there's all those factors going into it. So that's probably the one thing. I think I had, when you have someone that comes on set that's never been on a photo shoot before, it's like that aha moment for them of like, so this is how you do it anyway. I don't know whether everyone does it like that, but it's just an easier way of that pack up at the end of the day, or the pack up in the morning and then the pack down, putting everything back at the end of the day, because that's crazy.
Yeah. Oh, there's
That's
just so
crazy.
much to it, isn't there?
Mm,
So many
yeah.
layers. We brushed on, as designers and stylists, some clients sometimes underestimate the cost and complexity of styling. So, as you say, occasionally thinking they can style it and just take photos with their phone. How would you explain the difference between that professional styling and what might people assume it involves?
Yeah, I suppose it depends on who's taking the photos. Architects tend to want very, very simple paired back because they want the angles, they want the joins, they want the cabinetry, they want the light,
All the architectural
all
components.
the architectural components to shine. And it doesn't necessarily have to have that emotion and that vibe. There might be enough of a vibe just by the light, the way the light feels. It depends on the space.
Yeah, all the materials.
The materials, yeah. You can walk into a pavilion with just a skylight and it can be an amazing experience and that can photograph so amazingly. But
Or beautiful landscaping. Or
yeah, yeah, yeah. Or, just a house on a hill. You don't even need anything else. It was, Sydney, we always laugh about it in Melbourne because Sydney just has the most amazing views. So, the harbour is
it's different.
is
Yeah.
your styling piece. So it's very different in Melbourne. So, yeah, I think it really depends on that. But I think it's just getting to know that person that you're going to style for. Tell me how you want to feel when you look at that image. Do you think that a chair is going to be that pinnacle moment? And it's also pulling the viewer, into that image. So it just depends on what the outcome is, I think, for the shots, where they're going to land, whether it's just for a website. I mean, a lot of the time with interior designers doing cabinetry and that sort of stuff, we do the small detail, the joins where, they're cupboard pulls, their drawer pulls, those sort of things. They're really important for them because they want to explain to the next client, we loved using these and this is what they look like. They're amazing. You should try it.
Yeah.
So especially
Installed.
trying to maybe make people understand how it all works. So yeah, it really depends on where the images land.
Yeah, because then, discussing photographers and obviously your relationship with them during the shoot, how collaborative
Oh,
is
it's
that
so
process
collaborative.
for
I
you?
drive them nuts. I say to them a lot, Am I invading your personal space today?
Just checking in.
Just checking. Because when you're obviously you're looking at a laptop, or with some photographers do have iPads. Everyone's got a different
Yeah.
system, but most of the time you're hanging around, the laptop. So it is very much like, yeah, hi, it's only me. So yeah, it's very collaborative. So you really need to get along, and I think you also need to work out when that person needs a break from you, because it's very intense. We're
Have that
both trying
awareness.
to, yeah, we're both trying to, get the same outcome. We want the client to go, oh my God, great shot. Let's move on. So you sort of tweaking in and out, and yeah, you're in each other's space a lot.
Yeah. And I think it's really important. I've obviously worked with lots of stylists. I never pretend to be the stylist of the shoot. I've learned that I'm going to stay in my lane. I can style. Obviously, I think when you're a designer, you can style. But sometimes I've just spent 18 months on this job and I'm ready to just have someone come in with fresh eyes and just take over. And it's always better
Yeah.
than what I ever anticipated.
It's like having someone in your own home. It's like having a friend over and they go, have you ever thought about moving that to there? And I love people doing that in my own house because, one, you don't have the same time that I would do on a shoot. And two, it's just those fresh eyes. And quite often you go into a space that a designer has or an architect has done. More designers, maybe interior designers, because they're using a lot more, fabric.
Upholstery.
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
a lot more components. So a lot of the time they just want you to go, don't change that. It's amazing. It actually looks really great. So yeah, that's probably a skill. Yeah, that you can sort of, help each other, because when someone says, "Oh, I love your work," you get that feeling that you really want to, continue to create that together.
Deliver. Yeah.
And because I see so many different styles, so many different homes, so many different ways that people work and ways that people design, it's my pivot all the time is trying to find, well, yesterday was a terrace. The week ago was a country home where they kept the existing building, even down to the rusty
Timber
roof.
beams.
They
Oh,
extended it
wow.
onto the new part. Yeah, amazing. So, I see all these different styles. So it is that pivot of loving more than just one style. So that's probably why my house is messy a lot, because I'm moving stuff, trying to, yeah, I almost need to have rooms like, the old block where it used to be one color was this, one color was that. That one's Art Deco, that one's
More
mid-century.
deliberate spaces. Yeah.
This one's Space Age. Yeah, because you tend to then learn to love lots of different things. Yeah.
Well, you're exposed to so much,
Yeah.
in our
completely.
industry. Like you
Yeah.
think, okay, cool, I'm sorted. I've got that layout done. Even when I'm specifying the furniture procurement for clients, like that's phase 3 of what we do, and get into it. And by the time it's getting delivered, I've seen something new. I'm thinking, Camilla, stay focused. The client loves it. It's a custom sofa. It's already being manufactured. You cannot pivot on this one, but the cushions maybe.
Yeah. And I think also too, because digitally we are so dazzled by incredible imagery, it's really, really hard to stay in the lane and right from the start to the finish of it. I had one client who did not have Instagram, and the only inspo that she had, she didn't have Pinterest. She worked corporate, no time for it. And she was it was like the ideal client, because I'd literally present her with 3 different types of tiles for the floors. And she'd be like, yep, love that one. So all she needed, because she didn't sort of go, oh my God, I actually saw on Instagram last night at midnight, this great house, maybe could we do it another color? Or I've changed my mind, I want cork floors now, or whatever. There was no
Distraction.
There was no distraction. Yeah, that's exactly. So she just knew that when she saw it, she would love it. So it was such a beautiful process, because that's the ideal, I think. And for me, I get easily distracted like that too, thinking maybe we should try green instead.
It's a bit grass is greener kind of energy, isn't it?
Yeah. And worrying about trends, worrying, is it too trendy? Because all of a sudden now you're seeing it. Yeah. So yeah, that's the ideal client.
This episode of Behind the Design is brought to you by my interior design studio, Unfolded. At Unfolded, we design thoughtful, functional homes and collaborate closely with architects, builders, and creatives who help bring projects to life. You can explore our work at unfolded.com.au. Do you approach styling differently depending on whether the project is, catered towards the architect or the client or the builder or the developer?
Yeah, completely.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of the first questions that I ask is, where do you want the photos to land? If they want to go down the route of getting them published, if it's just for their website, well, not just, but if it's for their website or for their own, for award season, end of November, December, maybe sometimes January, award season's coming up. So they want images for award season. So there's, certain requirements that they need. So yeah, there's all those different things. Before I even dream up what I think we could do in the space is to find out where they're going to land like that.
Because it's a specific brief.
Yeah, completely. And sometimes it'll be, we'll just photograph it because it's a great project. There's one architect that I worked with last year who only photographs before she does handover. So it's just a very minimal few pieces of furniture, just be certain surfaces in the house. So she just says it's a better way for her to believe how she designed it for that client. I think most clients go rogue, they bring something from the old house that they think they're going to love and they bring it in. The architect's like, what the hell is that over there? So, there's all that hustle of changing things around, moving things out of shot if the architect didn't really want that in a shot. So doing it empty is ideal, but it's just that minimal feel. So that works well for her.
Because we even, when we are doing that furniture phase, sometimes the budget can be, as we say, what's left. So we try and say, like my approach is to say, let's talk about investment areas. Could be living, dining, outdoor, master bedroom, and the rest are a little bit more, mid-range versus high-end. And what I love is, at least I say to them, look, we are going to photograph it. And they're always so comfortable with that.
Yeah.
Before they move in and before it gets personal, keep it architectural. Then have someone like yourself come in and style it. And I'm a bit less is more with that type of thing. I think it's nice to have those key areas show off or showcase the best that they can without too much, going on as well.
So I had a decorating client, young family, beautifully architecturally designed home. All the window furnishings were all done, amazing, but they did not have one piece of artwork, not one vessel, nothing like that she wanted to display in the house. So they just had not started collecting that. They had a young baby. And so my job was to come in and find what they liked, show her how it looked with certain things. Some things she went and did on her own. Other things she would, contact me and say, can we do rugs for here? Or can you find me a chair for a study or whatever? So it's sort of educating people too and giving them that skill that, because you're not, well, maybe people would, but not everyone has a home that is designed by an architect or an interior designer. And so it's giving people the skills to go, you know what, find what you like. Some people never find what they like, as far as paint art or
It's personal
object.
too.
Yeah. Or they just don't have the time, or they may not have the money at certain points. They might have it at other points. So it's that sort of, education that I really love, and being able to just put them into it, sort of an uncomfortable spot of, do you love this or do you love this? And sort of trying to show them that they do have taste, because everyone's got different taste. But it's maybe just not what's on Instagram that week, or maybe not what's in a magazine that they've picked up at, the supermarket or the newsagents. So it's, that education as well, just to give them that confidence, I think. It's like showing someone, I worked with someone a few weeks ago and they said that they had a personal stylist to help them get dressed when they were facing clients. And I said to her, oh, you've got great style. She said, well, I have, because this person has shown me what actually looks really good on me and what colors suit me and all that sort of stuff, So I think it's just that education, which is
Creates confidence.
yeah. And you want people to be confident because I'm not going to live with them in their house and go, look at this beautiful artwork
I'm
that
really
we've
enjoying
got."
it.
Yeah. Look how happy we all are. So you want them to, you want them to sit in their house and be like, now I know what she was talking about when, she said to get a piece of art in the dining room so that when we have friends over, we've got something to talk about. And, or the chair that sits in the window in the sun, it's a great
Really
spot.
deliberate piece.
Yeah.
Your style has been described as quite, eclectic, more expressive compared to minimal editorial, right? And so, how would you describe your own design and styling philosophy when it comes to this?
I think it's more about the emotion. I used to say it to my kids who'd be driving along, they'd be like, "Oh my God, I've got to stop." And they'd be like, "What's going on?" Like, tire scratching goodness. Like, you must just sit in the car, do not touch anything, so that I could get out and just take a photo. Or, I always take photos of people, especially in winter when their lamps are going on at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, that you get the feel for how people live. And I think my style is probably emotive. I really want people to, it's like when you open a magazine, you notice what makes you stop, right? It could be, a pair of shoes that someone's wearing, or it could be an amazing artwork in a house, or, a view or a harbor, or, a beach or whatever.
It's an
When you're
impression.
yeah. So I think that's how I would describe my style, I think. I hate the overhead lights. There are
Downlights are out.
downlights so bad. I actually posted something yesterday with Ryan Gosling, someone talking about the big light. He was in a studio and they said, "Oh, what's the big light?" And he was like, and they were like, "Well, look, we'll show you." And they turned the overhead lights off and then they turned them back on. And he's like, "Oh my God, now I know what you're talking about." So I think that's my style. Yeah, I want people to feel good where they live. Maybe that's the style.
Yeah, that's it. But I
Yeah.
think it's okay for us to accept that we don't have a style. And I think there was such a stigma around that. I reckon about 2 years ago. It did come up recently on the podcast with a couple of guests. And there's this sort of like, what's your style? And I even think about mine and I'm like, oh, I definitely have earthy and, there's definitely a bit of style there. But then again, I've done projects where a lot more bold colors. So it's like, it's okay to kind of differ and break out a little.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I think also too, when you're designing for people in their homes, it has to, if they don't have a style, then I think I always say to them, try and work out what you don't like. Because if you can knock out everything that you don't like, instantly what you like and what you don't like. I really do believe that if you have one or the other, and if they can work that out, then that style will eventually, emerge, or it can be created with a designer or a decorator or stylist. But yeah, I think it's definitely, it's a hard thing to describe, the Hamptons, or, because I do get people and they go, "Oh, I want a Hampton style house." And I'm like, "Well, do you like, it'll be a certain profile of a door or whatever." And they'll be like, "Oh, no, that's not Hampton." It's like, well, actually it is. So I think people need to get that out of their head.
Get really clear on it.
Yeah, and your life stages, if you've got young kids compared to when you've got teenagers, compared to if you've got multi-generational living, your style's going to be different.
Your needs are
It
different
has to be
too.
different. Yeah. And also the amount of money you might have when you first get married to when, you're 40 years down the track. Things change.
differs a lot.
So, yeah.
Yeah, because I find it so interesting with clients who will say, I think I know what I like, but I just don't know how to pull it together. And I have those similar conversations where I'll say, okay, well, what about this? What about this? No, no. I'm like, okay, I think you're clearer on what you don't like. And like you say, I think they don't want to say what they don't like almost to not offend anyone.
Yeah,
But,
completely.
but it's
Yeah.
like that clears
Or they
up.
think it's the wrong answer.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
I actually don't like that, even though I sent you that photo, but most of it I don't like. And you're thinking, okay, let's sit down. Let's just unpack all of this. And I think it's so important to get really clear. And I always say, yeah, investment areas are such a big one. So then work out what you don't like, work out what you want to invest in. And then all of a sudden your brief, as you say, it's fine tuned.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it's also, budget. No one wants to say they have a budget. it's really hard to get someone to go, okay, this is what I'm going to spend. So
And give you an actual number.
yeah,
Yeah.
even I would probably go, oh, I don't know. I don't know. You show me what you think. I probably would do the same. So I sort of sometimes will say, okay, would you spend 10,000 on a sofa? And if they go, oh my God, no way, then you've already narrowed down certain showrooms. You know, you don't have to try and make them fall in love with the $30,000 sofa because you know that that's not in their budget. So it
Well,
just
you're
sort
going
of,
in blind otherwise.
completely, completely. And that's time. If you charge by the hour, the client's going to be definitely worse off. And also, you don't have that extra time. It just makes it very cohesive and probably a nicer process for everyone because you're not having that chat all the time about money.
Yeah.
You want to chat about the nice things, not about, what they can't afford.
That's it. And I think, that it's a fine balance, isn't it, of talking the financials, but still remaining in your creative alignment. Because I think we can tend to be like, avoid, but at the same time, getting clear on that budget as best as you can when they genuinely might say, look, I've spent a lot on this house. Like one of my clients on the Central Coast, has just said, look, I don't know what I want to spend yet on the furniture, but I do know that I have just spent so much on this beautiful home. I do not want to go low range. I want it to be beautiful. So what can we do with that? And there was no figure, but it gave me guidance to go, okay, I'm narrowing what you need here. Let's unpack the layout. And then we found a figure that he was comfortable with. And I gave him a realistic outcome of what he can achieve with that figure. And now it's done.
Yeah.
And I think people do avoid it, but there's ways to manage it. Yeah. Which I've learned over the years.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah. And
It's always a learning.
That probably comes with dealing with people who, I shouldn't say difficult, gosh.
Challenging?
Challenging, yeah. Who challenge what you think.
Yeah.
And you know that they've got young kids, so probably that $10,000 sofa is going to get ruined in 3 years' time with 3 kids under 5. Yeah. But yeah, that's, I suppose it's sort of narrowing it down to, okay, you may not, it takes a long time to fill a house. A house is probably never, ever filled. Not, and I don't mean every shelf and whatever, but just where you feel like you've got all the right layers. I think it takes a long, long time. So think about the investment pieces, the big things in the room. That's what I always say to people. If you can get the big things right, it's the same with the photo shoot. If we can get the big things right, the rug on the floor, the sofa, or a dining table, it doesn't necessarily matter that we don't. Yesterday we had 2 dining chairs. And the client said, but this is a house for 4. And I said, yeah, but I think if we put 4 chairs in, it's going to look cluttered and it's not actually a really nice image. But as soon as we just went for 2 really beautiful chairs in sort of set in just it looked weird from looking at it, angled, the light was catching, your eye instantly went to that beautiful warmth of that space. You're like, yeah, we only needed 2 chairs. So yeah, it's sort of, there's investments, I suppose.
And that's you taking the lead in that moment too, Otherwise you might have done the flooring. Oh,
yeah,
shouldn't have done that.
completely.
And so how do you balance showcasing the architecture and design while still bringing the personality and atmosphere with the images?
Well, I think that's why it helps that I have very varied eclectic style. So I can definitely do minimal if you want minimal, and I can do really crazy, kooky, weird shaped stuff if you want it as well. So I think that's probably where it helps, because also every photographer uses a different set of, one photographer will be a lot warmer in their tones that they use with their imagery compared to the other who might be very clean, almost, sterile looking, but perfect for architecture. They've all got their own styles as well. So I think the eclecticness, which I'm always worried about being pigeonholed into a sort of a spot.
Yeah, you have an eclectic style. It's like,
because I
hold up.
actually do love minimal, and I love European, and then I love Art Deco, and then I love mid-century.
This is why I love these
love rural.
conversations.
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
your
yeah.
Instagram
Yeah.
could lean a
Yeah.
little bit more to the eclectic
Yeah.
style, but then your website.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. I was thinking about that on the way here this morning because I suppose my website I've sort of showcased. Well, it's all different because it's not me really because they're all shoot projects that I've put on my website and they're not really my project. That's why I always say I'm a collaborator. I'm really just this teeny tiny little piece um, in that whole puzzle because I know those designers or architects have been working on those projects for 2 years, 3 years. So I'm just like this little person that comes in right at the end that says, hey, what about if we did this? Have you tried putting a round table there instead of the square to shoot better, blah, blah, blah. So, that final layer, as I call it, or the last layer. So it definitely, I acknowledge that those people that have done all that work because that's probably another reason why I don't take on too many clients. I don't take on really any finishing, like any clients with finishes because I'm not good at that. I've sort of worked out what I'm good at. And I'd probably contact you to do all the finishes for me and I'll do the furniture. So, I've sort of worked out my niche and I've sort of just worked out what I'm good at. And then I can sort of lend into different styles, different tones, different, you know, spatially, you can go from a tiny, teeny apartment to a, 5-bedroom house. So, yeah, I think,
It's ever changing.
yeah, definitely. And that's probably why I keep doing it because I just love that. One that I've got next week's just crazy good and it's teeny tiny little house. So, I'm already thinking about, okay, I've got a few things lined up, but it's sort of, after shooting yesterday, I'm sort of like, okay, now it's empty for a week. I've got a week to really, really, dream at night about this next project.
So another topic that I'd love to bounce with you is how the design media landscape has changed significantly over the years. Publications like Real Living, Inside Out once provided platforms for a wide range of homes, and now that space is much smaller. How do you feel that platform and that shift has affected the way designers and stylists approach photography and the media exposure that comes from that?
Yeah, well, I think investment-wise, a lot of smaller studios and emerging interior designers or decorators, they're quite scared about taking the leap and investing in a photo shoot.
Because it's
When
expensive.
yeah, when they're not sure. And I always say to them, look, I can't guarantee where any of these images are going to land magazine-wise. I don't have a magic, key, I wish, because it is ever-changing and there are other ways of getting your work out there. But I think it's definitely changing. I feel like even in the last few months talking to people in the industry, they want to make the investment because their website is where they get their clientele. They want to make these images so they can use it for social media. Social media has been still, I think, a big pull on people having, imagery of their projects.
It's a free portfolio
Yeah.
at the end of the day.
Yeah. So I always say to people, you could do that on your iPhone, but you could have some incredible images for Instagram or your website where it's worth the investment, I think. And I think, I suppose it depends on what you want. If you want it to win an award, then it's definitely worth that investment. But I think magazines, I think those middle ground, that Real Living, Inside Out, tended to be sort of the mid-range projects. And so I feel for people who aim their work at that range, that is a hard, where do you go? So it's either online media, overseas magazines that might also cater for that.
I'm noticing a big trend in that, like, Elle France and things like that are all posting a lot of, or sharing, I should say, a lot of Australian work, which is great. It's amazing. But I'm like, kind of doing a little bit more over there than we are here.
And I think clients whose houses were photographed, I find most clients don't see it as an imposition. There are some clients where, like an architect or a builder will say to the client, go away for a weekend, we'll shout you a weekend, and then we shoot the project. And they're the clients that don't really care about the imagery. They've just sort of promised it to the, builder or the architect. But there are still clients who just love seeing their house in a magazine. It's that real boost. It's something beautiful to hold on to
The
show their
house proud
friends.
moment.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially if they've made lots of decisions and the house, is really authentically them. They love that imagery.
It's like a representation of
Yeah.
them. And they've been there the whole way, building this beautiful dwelling. So
Yeah, they've laid in bed at night too, worrying about, colours and the way they're going to feel once, all the contractors have gone out of their house.
the feature stone, was it the
Mm.
right decision?
Yeah. Did I like the way they did that corner join? I'm not sure. There's definitely a shift. And I think, some architects are thinking that magazines, it depends on the magazine, I think, but whether it's more for their cohort, the other people in the industry to see what they're doing. And it's probably a very hard thing to actually work out whether you get a job from someone seeing it in a magazine.
Is there any way to work that out? I don't think so.
I don't know. That's the
How?
golden ticket, maybe.
Yeah.
I think if people say, like, I get a lot of my work from Instagram. So I sort of go, well, that's free, basically, free advertising. It's just that it takes a lot of time and effort and, that day-to-day grind of social media.
And staying consistent with it.
Staying consistent and being fresh and trying to do fun stuff as well so that people are engaged and all that sort of stuff. So, yeah, I think that's, you always ask someone when you meet someone, oh, how did you find me? Some people will tell you, some people don't. But I think, magazines used to be
Yeah,
the way,
absolutely.
but I don't know. I mean, I love print. So I hope it never, never, ever dies.
I wonder as well, I've got a few magazines from way back at home, and I'm like, I think
Yeah.
I might keep those because if we ever get to that point where it's all gone,
Oh,
it'll
yeah,
be so beautiful
absolutely.
just to have, That's what I love about the local project. The lovely Aiden, I've got a couple of his books, and I'm like, you know what? I just want to have them around, just have them around the house because it's showcasing beautiful houses
And
and
it's harangue. We've got such an amazing, clever people designing in Australia. And I think sometimes too, I do look at my Instagram and go, oh God, I'm sort of very dazzled by the, Mediterranean house. Maybe it's just the dreams in my head. But, I am very bedazzled by whatever goes on the other part of the globe, especially if it's horrible weather here. You want your beach holiday. So your eye tends to drift a bit. So, but that's the one thing about doing this job as well. There are I meet so many amazing creative people.
yeah, I love that part of the
Yeah,
industry. Yeah.
that may have been doing it for a long time, but just not those ones that stand up and go, hey, look at me. Humble, just creating these amazing spaces. And to go into a project with someone and actually go, oh, tell me about the kitchen. You see their eyes light up for the people that are really, really devoted to the client
And they've been passionate from day one about their direction, their designs. Yeah.
or a subsequent client, subsequent client. The client that they've done one house for and then they do, several.
Yes.
They're
They become a bit of a
they
repeat
become
client.
a friend, and they almost, it's that, I've just done a decorating job for the same client in 2 different houses. And it really becomes, the family, that the dog doesn't sit on the sofas. You become really, you really know a lot about each other, especially if you're doing bed linen and what everyone likes to sleep on and
Well,
all
and
that.
how they live, which is so important for people like you and I to know. Otherwise, we got to know what the practical side of it is as much as the aesthetic. So looking ahead, you've built a career working closely with architects, designers, and photographers in creating these visual stories for clients and for your own portfolio. What continues to inspire you in styling today?
I always see new, and I think maybe that's just my personality type. I love classic, like I really do love classic everything, but when you see something that I'm always trying to find new makers, people who are just really clever with color, with things that they make, things in their hands, repurposing things. So I think that's probably that constant inspiration. And also, yeah, that going back to that 10 things could be great in that space. So when someone has a project we're doing next week is ridiculously amazing. As soon as I walked in, I was like, oh my God, I'm so lucky that I get to work in spaces like this. But it's two interior designers and one lives in the space with 4 kids. So they've been bubbling away doing an amazing job, but just no time to photograph this house. And she's sort of like, do you think it's going to be okay? I'm like, oh my God, it's going to be amazing. Amazing story. So it was an old milk bar that they've made into this house with 4 kids.
Oh,
And,
wow.
it's corner block. It's fantastic. But yeah, going back to that 10 things, I sort of walk in and go, well, you could try this or you could try that. And it might just be, time fatigue. They haven't got time to think about the fact that if they move that art to that wall and then change that and then got, a piece that I've just magically pulled out of my pocket that, it could definitely work and change the way, you move a piece of art in your house, it has a completely different feel. As soon as you take something away and change it, yeah.
Yeah, swap it for a mirror or
Yeah. So I think that's what keeps me going is that ability to be able to change some small things, even if it's adding a color. And it can be something so small like a bowl or amber glass. Anything small like that can still really completely change it up.
makes a big impact.
Yeah.
Yeah. To kind of wrap up on the styling side of things and where you see things going and your approach, how do you see the role of styling evolving as social media and digital media continue to shape the design industry?
I hope it doesn't get phased out like books.
AI.
Yeah. I use a bit of AI sometimes to write, docs and stuff that I don't have the skill to do myself. And I do use AI as far as trying to entice someone to change the color of a wall.
Because
Even
it's a
down,
quick fix.
yeah, completely. And it's, I understand that not everyone can see it in their heads.
We can
I-
visualize it,
yeah,
but not everybody.
yeah. I've got this
Spell it
beautiful
out.
husband who just can't visualize it. And I'll say to him, just trust me, just trust me, just trust me. So I do use AI to change wall color, but there's no emotion in it. It's flat. It's doesn't really tell a story. So I hope, and I know right now that's probably how I feel AI is working and not working. So I don't know. Yeah. It just doesn't have the emotion. And you can look at 5 different photographers and you will point to the one that you love. And most of the time it's because you feel something looking at that image.
It's not computer generated.
Yeah. And so I think when you have to create assets and you have to, we're trying to feed the beast all the time with social media. I think you understand how hard it is and you understand how time consuming it is. I don't think AI is going to be able to do that.
No.
Don't quote me on that.
And it's a different experience having a physical stylist come in, set up a space and also for it to be lived in. So it's not just the photography, it's your service of living, styling to live.
Yeah. And maybe, and I think I'm still quite practical in that respect. The client with 3 kids under 5, don't buy the $10,000 sofa. Buy the one that you can wash the covers or whatever. It's really, try and be practical because, I also know the value of having cheaper things and more expensive things. I've got kids, I've got a dog who, wants to sit on all the furniture. So you have to be practical, and I'm not going to specify that for a client just because I think it looks good. No, I want to.
Yes. You can tell them that. I want to, but it won't work.
I want to, but I'm going to be practical. So I think, sometimes, hopefully AI just stays in its own lane.
So we always like to wrap up with a few fun questions. And we do 3 questions in under 3 minutes. Question 1. Do you prefer working with a playlist or total silence?
Depends if I'm stressed or not. If I'm stressed, I want silence. So I go into my little shell. If I can't figure something out, I need to go into it. Sometimes when I'm on a shoot, I'm like, if you can't find me, I'm usually in a pantry or a wardrobe. And I just have to stay and collect my thoughts. Okay, this is not life or death. You can do this. So yes, silence. But then, if the date's really bubbling along and it's 3 o'clock and there's chocolate, then definitely a playlist.
Bit of tunes.
Yeah.
Number 2, what would be your dream styling project if there were absolutely no limits?
Probably that house in Greece that I could go and stay in once a year for 3 months at a time when it's cold here. That would probably be my dream. And, no budget. Open credit card.
And what's one design or styling trend you secretly hope never comes back?
I did once upon a time say glass bricks, but hey,
Oh,
look at that.
controversial.
Controversial.
They
It's
are back.
And I do love them. I notice a lot actually in Sydney. A lot
I
of 80s
saw
builds.
a whole wall in this amber
Oh,
color.
amazing.
And I was like, it was a commercial restaurant, wine bar. It was a wine bar. And I was like, whoa.
And I always said stainless steel because I love warmth.
Yeah.
So stainless steel sometimes, I don't like sitting at stainless steel. It just makes me feel cold.
Can be
and
very cold. Yeah.
whatever. But I do love stainless steel in its own way.
Well, Ellison Studios has just brought out bar stools. Ton of bar stools with stainless steel. Mixed bag. Bit of timber, bit of upholstery, bit of stainless steel.
I don't know. I
Yeah, it
think,
can be a bit cool, a bit cold.
yeah,
And tinny too, because it echoes.
it
Yeah.
does. And it sort of feels a bit sharp, even though it's not.
Yeah.
Tactility is probably, but then, I don't know, tile benches, I always said, no way. But I think the problem with Instagram is that once you see things a few times, you go, couldn't do that. So I think that's how you have to get your head out of Instagram and go back to, I don't know, whether it's art books or, I sometimes try and pick up I picked up the Terence Conran 1980 book and sort of went back through, and you can instantly go through it and go, oh my God, I love that. I love that. I love that. I would not have been looking at that in the 80s, but now looking at it, you can really sort of get that feel for what still pulls you. It could be just a shape that pulls you into it. It could be a texture or whatever. So, I don't know. Never say never.
Never
was
say
a-
never.
That was a really
That
quick.
was a good.
That was a quick.
We circle back around to not sure.
That was supposed to be the quick question. Sorry about that. Yeah.
Well, that concludes our episode. So thank you
you.
for coming on
Yeah.
Behind the Design.
Thank
Bea.
you for having me.
My key takeaways from this conversation with Bea are that styling is an essential part of how design is communicated, that the images we see online are the result of careful collaboration between designers, stylists, and photographers, and that behind every effortless-looking photo is a huge amount of creative work. For those listening, you can explore Bea's work through Bea & Co Style online and on Instagram. If you enjoyed this episode, please follow Behind the Design, leave a review, and share it with someone who loves design and visual storytelling. I'm Camilla Ingall, and this has been Behind the Design.